Calling the roll for the Tuesday, January 22nd Board of Control meeting, we have Nan Baker. Here. Dale Miller. Here. Trevor McAleer serving as an alternate for Dan Brady. Here. Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Mike Dever. Here. Dennis Kennedy serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Lenora Lockett. Here. We have a quorum. It is now 11:04 a.m.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is a review of the Board of Control minutes from January 14th, 2019. I hope everybody's had the opportunity to look those over. Are there any questions or corrections to those minutes from anyone? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval of the minutes indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The Board of Control minutes are approved. Is there any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
And I believe we do have a tabled item, is that correct?
Yes, we do. Tabled item number BC 2019-6, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Re-Entry. It's a two-part item. A, submitting an RP exemption on Requisition 44158, which will result in an award recommendation to Track Bill LLC in the amount not to exceed $2,999 for legislative tracking for government affairs professionals online subscription services. And it's for the period September 11th, 2018 through September 11th, 2019. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning. Fred Bolleton with the Office of Reentry. This contract had come up a few weeks ago and was tabled because there were some questions about use of this service versus other services. Just to try to clarify, this is delayed. The contract is late because our budget officer thought incorrectly that because of the amount it would be able to be funded with a voucher. When we found out it was not, what was brought here. There was a free trial subscription, so that's why when that was part of the annual subscription. So when that expired, that's why the starting date is as early as it is. When we first wanted to get a service, we did talk with OBM, who suggested that we do some research into whether or not any other HHS agencies had any kind of subscription service. They did check and found there was none that did. So we went ahead with this. The question also came up how this compared to other services, such as the one that I think Council uses, Gongwar. This tracks not only state but federal legislation and any activities of Ohio delegations in Congress. So we found it to be, for our needs, a superior service. We also found that the customer service was much better than that. The basic contract comes with 5 licenses, so there will be other availability if other HHS agencies do want to have a similar service. They can sign up under this contract. So I think that answers the questions that you had in terms of the timing, the procurement, and the comparison of services. I'll be glad to answer any other questions.
Any questions? Councilman Miller.
What kind of information could you get from this service that would actually make a difference in decision making in your department?
This does tracking of all state and federal legislation that deals with whatever subject matter you put in. Ours would obviously be, we're dealing with reentry. It has real-time updates, which Gongwar does not, and it also tracks any activity or statements and releases by any Ohio members of Congress or Senate, whereas Gongwar does not. They will occasionally give updates of something major, but they do not track federal. And so it gives real-time updates. It tracks all the legislation dealing with whatever area you're interested in, from the introduction of the legislation to any committee's activity or upcoming committee activity and floor activity. and also anything dealing with representatives from, in this case, Cuyahoga County, dealing with state legislation.
So would information about upcoming opportunities for grant funding be typically the kind of thing you'd be looking for?
Do not think that that's the case. We did not look into that specifically. We have other ways of trying to track these federal grants. That's a very good question, but I would have to get back to you on that. I do not know. We have not used it for that purpose.
So then, what kind of information would you get that would be useful?
What kind of information?
I mean, just to know what's going on in Columbus or Washington, how would that impact your operations, that it's worth you spending the money to get this information?
There is federal legislation that impacts reentry, everything from tax exemptions, tax credits that are given, and it has to be periodically renewed. In terms of federal legislation, there's federal bonding programs. There's other legislation dealing with prison reform on the federal level. So there's federal legislation that certainly impacts the reentry community and our work.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Baker?
Just to be clear, there are no other Health and Human Service agencies that track any.
As far as we know, and from OBM's search of any kind of budget allocations, there is none.
Wow. And if I may, and if they found a need that this service could possibly be something that would be valuable to them, can they be one of those?
That for other agencies, yes.
Can they be one of those five?
Or if council wants to switch and use that too. I say it can be anyone, any other licensees.
It says services up to 5 people. Could another agency service when it says services up to 5 people? Wow. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So
we would use no more than 2, and we could get by with using 1 if there were others.
So just a question, will you convey that then to Walter at HHS?
I'm sorry?
Can you convey this to Walter at HHS
Oh, yes.
to make sure that
he does know about this, and we will, if approved, we will let him know again that there are other 4 other licenses available.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we go on to new items.
Next item, BC 2019-53, Department of Public Works, submitting an amendment, subsidiary number 2, to a contract with Union Industrial Contractors, Inc. for rehabilitation of Highland Road bridges over Euclid Creek in the city of Euclid for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $397,849.79.
Nicole English with Public Works. We're submitting this amendment for Highland Road Bridge project in Euclid. And the main reason for this is the difference in time between when we first started designing the project and when we constructed was over 5 years. When they started construction, the idea for maintenance of traffic, they were cutting the bridges in half, and then they would move traffic to half, build half the bridge, swap, and do the other side. When they cut the bridges, the first 2 bridges, they were in significantly worse condition than we thought when we initially designed. So what they needed to do then is no trucks could drive on the half of the bridge. So we had to set up a detour route, which added additional flaggers, plates on the road, and then additional work that had to be done to just stabilize the other half of the bridge that was left for cars to drive on it. So that's what this amendment is for. In general, everything, I mean, deck work, demolition to the deck, stiffeners, and then, anything that was associated with the problem that we had once we cut those bridges in half, 2 of the bridges. We're doing 2 bridges at one time, then 2 bridges the next season. So this amendment, unfortunately, we're out of federal money, so this is all county road and bridge dollars that we're paying for with this project.
Thank you. Any questions for Nicole? Councilman Miller?
So, is the problem with having to reroute the traffic, does that account for most of the subsidiary, or did you also have money for additional quantities of materials?
Both, but the additional quantities are mainly for shoring up what was left of the bridge. So not necessarily things we didn't account for appropriately. It was that now you have to make sure that half a bridge can support the cars that are going over it. So it was kind of both.
So essentially, both aspects were related to the same basic problem?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Baker?
When an unexpected expense like this happens and we have to reach into the 750 vehicle license tax fund, what does that do for the other projects that are counting on the money that was not anticipated this would take?
So we do have, $1 million we put a year for emergency use. We'll draw on that first. And then, some of this, we knew this was going to be coming when they started the project in the field. They told us, we think there's going to be some problems. So we've been in the CIP, adding a little bit of additional money for this project. This one is sort of an outlier. I mean, it's costing us more than we anticipated for sure. So we're dipping into those emergency funds.
You have the funds to cover that? Thank you.
Mike Chambers, too, if you notice a couple items later, you're going to see a negative number, too. So it does swing a little bit. So that helps with the planning.
Great.
This right by the exit to the Metro Parks there, is that where
Yes.
I'm thinking? Okay.
Yeah, 4 bridges in a row on this project. So this is the first 2 that we started work on.
Okay, any other questions? Councilwoman Miller?
So is it typical for these federal projects to not allow any money for subsidiaries, or is this unusual?
This one's unique. I mean, the federal projects, they have a max normally, and sometimes when we first budget for them, we do have a contingency, a 10% to go over. This project, because it was delayed several times, and you might remember when we awarded this, we had one bidder. It was significantly over. We were crunched for time. NOACA didn't have the money in hand when they should have. And so we were, right up against the fiscal year to get it awarded. So this sort of had everything that could have happened to this project has happened as far as money. We are looking into going back to NOACA for a request of increase. The most you can go is 10%, but at least that would cover some of it because this is already Amendment 2. We had Amendment 1 for some missed quantities in the plan. So we're going to try to go back to NOACA for an adjustment, but it's no guarantee.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the items. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The item's approved.
Next item, BC 2019-54, Department of Public Works, submitting an amendment, subsidiary number 1, to a contract with Terrick Roofing, Inc. for the Virgil E. Brown Building Roof Replacement Project for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $360,000.
Good morning, Matt Reimer with the Department of Public Works. This request is an amendment to an in-progress capital construction project at the Virgil E. Brown Building, specifically our roof replacement project. This amendment request is for unforeseen conditions that we experienced during the demolition phase. Specifically, and the biggest unforeseen was that our fireproofing on the underside of the metal steel roof deck when we were doing the demolition began delaminating. With that, in the fall, we had to work with the Department of HHS and relocate staff from the 5th floor. So right now we have an empty 5th floor, and as we're proceeding with then, once we have the roof on, to put this fireproofing back. We worked extensively with our architect on alternatives and with the City Building and Housing Department before we proceeded in this manner. Just another note on the appropriation. This does represent an appropriations increase to this project. It is an agenda item on the fiscal agenda this evening for Council. Happy to answer any of your questions.
Any questions for Matt? What was the total original cost of the project?
I don't have it with me, Mr. Kennedy, but it's just over $3 million. But I can get you the exact amount.
So this is about a 10%
It
variance?
is about a 10% variance, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-55, Department of Public Works, submitting an amendment, subsidiary number 2, to a contract with Katz Construction, Inc. for resurfacing of Pleasant Valley Road from State Road to Broadview Road in the city of Parma for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $212,696.55.
Nicole English with Public Works again. So this is another increase on our Pleasant Valley Road project. This project is substantially complete, so they're coming to us with essentially a final so they can pay the contractor out. There will be some landscaping that needs to be done next spring, so it's not accepting as final, but essentially we're done with the project. The two main things on this one was actual plan quantities being adjusted. So base, repair, pavement, at the end they final out the actual quantities, and they had gone up from the estimate. And then the other thing was around the intersections with Normandy High School and Green Valley Elementary School, there were some unforeseen conditions. They got in, the loop detectors weren't working, or they were just deteriorated to the point they needed to be replaced. So there was some additional traffic control, and then they needed a couple extra law enforcement officers to make the intersections work correctly during their busy times. So that's the increase. The good thing on this one is that we are still $400,000 under the engineer's estimate, and so we still have federal money and issue 1 covering the local share. So this is not any county money.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I will move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item's approved.
Next item, item BC 2019-56. It's a two-part item. Department of Public Works, A, submitting an RP exemption on Requisition 44535, which will result in an award recommendation to Scafco Scaffolding in the amount not to exceed $46,856 for safety scaffolding to access the exterior facade of the Justice Center complex, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RP exemption.
Good morning, Matt Reimer again with the Department of Public Works. This is a exemption request for a not to exceed amount to Scafco Scaffolding and Supply Company. If you may recall, back in late last year, BC 2018-747 item, I presented a mission critical time sensitive that erected this protective scaffold that is currently in place above the sheriff's ramp on the west third side of the Justice Center complex. That was due to a facade issue and failure that we had on a similar detail in another part of the same portion of the building. We had a structural engineer consultant in on same day, and they recommended the protective scaffold until we designed a repair for that area. So that scaffold has been in place since that mission critical departmental order that we presented to you late last year. This item will continue the rental up to a not to exceed of the $46,000, as well as the labor down at the end of the rental period until we can safely remove that scaffolding. With regard to the repair, our structural engineer consultant is currently designing the repair for this area, and we expect to be able to get up there in the spring and early summer to be able to do this. This would take us to a maximum rental period through November of this year.
Any questions for Matt? Mr. McAleer?
Matt, do you have an estimate for the replacement or repair of the facade, not including the scaffolding, but do you know how much it's going to cost to fix everything?
I don't. So this is in the area of, if you can picture where the clerk of courts section of the Justice Center is, that has a unique facade detail, unlike the other panels that are on Jail 1 and in the Justice Center Court Tower. It's anchored differently. It's not into precast concrete like the remainder of the building is. We're currently having that designed. We'll get an estimate with that design. That said, we are having our 2018 capital project appropriated tonight in part, and it will come out of that appropriation when we do get that estimate.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Councilman Miller?
Why was this done as an RFP exemption and not a regular bid?
We did this as an RFP exemption because the scaffolding is already in place and in use. And so we were continuing the use of the existing scaffolding.
And when we set up the original scaffolding, did we have any bid process on that?
Yes, I'll maybe turn it to Tom, but we did have, it's noted in here, 21 vendors. It was the minimum period of time for a mission critical. They were the only respondent, I believe.
Good morning, Tom Pavich. That's correct, Matt. We did it as a mission critical. You know, we knew that there was a piece of facade that was exposed and did fall. We put it as a mission critical for the minimum 2 hours. They were the only vendor that submitted a bid. If you do recall, I think it was earlier in October, we had another issue out at the Justice Center, or at the Juvenile Justice Center. A similar issue, we did that as a mission criticals, and that was the only vendor that supplied a bid to that one as well.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Baker?
It was actually an unrelated issue, but a similar bid process. I'm sorry. Okay.
Would you consider this a normal wear and tear of the building, or is this something that through your periodic maintenance found a problem, or did something just happen and you realized there was weaknesses?
So
where in your process did you realize that this was needed?
Hopefully this will be not too long of an answer for your councilwoman, but we have under city ordinance to have to do a facade inspection of certain age buildings at certain times.
Good.
This facade inspection was completed last summer on its intended schedule per the ordinance. This area was not found to have any discrepancies in that structural assessment that was done by our vendor. However, once the concern was revealed, we had a detailed structural inspection of that area. They amended their report, and thus the protective scaffold there now and resulting design for repairs. Hopefully that answers your question.
If I may, so the summer inspection did not find any fault? Wow.
Did not,
and
that's
then
correct.
We found that there was a
That's
problem.
correct. Forgive me, for clarification, it was a spring inspection. We got the report in the summer. So.
Thank you.
And who, Matt, did the initial inspection?
We're using Wiss Janie Elsner. They are also the authors of the city codified ordinance too.
So is there a reason they didn't detect it?
There were no signs of failure. There were no signs of distress in this particular panel.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilwoman Baker?
So what was it finally, how did we finally resolve what the problem was? Was it just going through a winter, or was it, I mean, what made it weak when it was inspected a few months earlier and found to be in good condition?
Sure.
What was the catalyst? What changed?
If I could try and summarize what is a very detailed and technical report, it is, I mean, there are two components for that particular area that hold that panel up: the embedment length of some anchors and an adhesive base support as well. And it appears that the embedment length of that particular panel was not adequate.
And just as a follow-up, has that been brought to their attention, those that inspected it and gave us a pass, and now we're putting in some considerable dollars? Have they been brought to the attention that, hey, we're fixing a building that you gave us a pass on?
They're one and the same. So it is our structural engineer consultant. They both did the facade inspection and that are doing the design. Again, this is an issue that could not have revealed itself from the exterior inspection.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Do we have a second? Second from Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Next item, BC 2019-57, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on Requisition 44378 and enter into a contract with Chemtron Corporation in the amount not to exceed $24,500 for fluorescent lamps, ballasts, and battery recycling services for various county buildings, and it's for the period January 22nd, 2019 through January 21st, 2021.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. This is an award recommendation to Chemtron Corporation. It's for a new contract for lamps, ballast, battery recycling services. It's a 2-year, not to exceed contract for $24,500. It's an as-needed contract. This was done as an informal bid for contract through BuySpeed. We had 3 bids that were submitted to us, awarding to Chemtron as the lowest and best bidder.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
The next item, BC 2019-58, has been held at the request of the department. Next.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Miller?
is there anything non-routine about this item that it needs to be held?
No, there isn't. They just didn't have someone here to represent the item, to present the item.
I'm willing to move forward on it.
I'll read it into the record.
Okay.
Again, item number BC 2019-58, Department of Development, submitting an amendment to agreement with the City of Lakewood for eligible home program activities and administration, and is for the period August 1st, 2016 through December 31st, 2018, to extend the time period to April 30th, 2020, to change the terms effective January 22nd, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $381,725.
Okay, so we don't need to amend the agenda or anything because it's already on there, right? Correct? My only question was in the backup, there's a number that says 585,000.
And the correct amount is $381,725.
So it's kind of a misprint there in the first sentence of the detail backup.
Their detail that was provided by them.
So it is, for clarification purposes, 381,725.
Mr. Chair, my understanding of this item is just our agreement with Lakewood for their portion of the home funding that we get from the federal government. So seems pretty routine.
I would agree with that. So any other questions or comments about this item? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item, BC 2019-59, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with Mainsail LLC for technical professional services in connection with the implementation of the Enterprise Resource Planning System, and is for the period September 17, 2018 through September 16, 2019, for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $470,000.
Good morning, Janelle Green on behalf of the Department of IT. This is, again, an amendment with Mainsail for staff augmentation for the ERP project. Mainsail was selected as the SBE vendor by Infor to fulfill the terms of their contract with the county. So we entered into a contract with them directly once their SBE requirement was fulfilled. So we're submitting this amendment to add funds to, again, cover the cost of the staff augmentation. The reason for this amount, we're doing this quarterly, so we're not over-encumbering funds for this particular contract as we are examining the resources and the needs at the time when there are deadlines and as things get implemented with the ERP project.
Okay, are there any questions? Mr. McAleer?
Just a question. The backup says that we need to amend this contract because of the number of county positions that we don't have filled yet.
Right, so this is kind of two things. So one, yes, we have a number of information system analyst positions that are unfilled.
Do you know that number?
We have actually 4 right now that are going to be reposted by HR. And then also, in order to make sure that the project moves along, we want to make sure that we have the resources in place that were, towards the beginning of the project. Because if we bid this out competitively, we run the risk of Mainsail being outbid, and then we have to start over from scratch with those resources. So we figured it made sense to continue with the resources we had in place in order to keep the project moving along.
And do you think I know you said you're doing this quarterly, but do you believe the $470,000 will get you through at least September 16th?
At this point, no, but we examine it because, let's say in December, we actually rolled off some of the resources that we had from main sale. So I don't think so. We do have a separate budget for main sale that's beyond the regular ERP budget, that we keep track of the resources, how many hours that we think that they're going to work, and the dollar amounts, and also keep track of how much we actually get from the actual, how much we're actually charged by the vendor. With the invoices that we get. So we are tracking these expenses as well.
Any additional questions? Councilman Miller?
Does this contract represent any unanticipated expense related to the ERP project, or is this $470,000 appropriation number within what we were expecting in the last presentation that we received?
This is in line with what we presented before. So we did have the budget going out to September for this already included in the budget. So this is not dipping into those contingency funds.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Meckler?
Janelle, I don't need it right now, but could you get us what you think we will need it above and beyond the $470,000?
Sure, I can send you the spreadsheet. Like I said, we are tracking that by resource and particular area where they work, so I can get you that workbook so you know the information as we know it.
Just to confirm though, but anything above this 470 would be outside of what was originally budgeted for?
No, we did budget for a full expense for the main sale. So we are looking at worst case scenario. We have budgeted out all the way through September in case we need those resources up until then. But in the event that deadlines get, or implementation gets moved up, that will change what our budget will look like.
Do you have that budget amount offhand?
Offhand, it's around 1.3 million all in total for the contract.
And then with this with this 470,000, where does that take us out of the 1.3?
We're at $920,000. The original contract was for $450,000.
Thank you.
Was that, I'm sorry, any other questions? Was that original $450,000 the county's contract?
That was our county portion. The other portion of the N4 main sale, we paid out through the N4 contract. That total was approximately $699,000. And we did pay those those were separately billed. This contract went into effect as of September 17th. So any of the other expenses from main sale were directly charged from N4, and we paid those out with N4 invoices.
So main sale basically, through a variety of different contracts, it was budgeted to be paid about $2 million?
Well, the other resources, they were doing backup for N4 separately from us. So altogether, yes, it's about $2 million, maybe $2.1 million.
Okay. Any other questions? Lenore? Okay, hearing none, I will move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
This item is a two-part item, item BC 2019-60, Department of Information Technology on behalf of the County Prosecutor's Office. A, submitting an RP exemption on Requisition 44586, which will result in an award recommendation to Dell Marketing LP in the amount not to exceed $450,839.91, and is for the purchase of various Microsoft licenses for use on servers and employee personal computers for the period January 22nd, 2019 through January 21st, 2021, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT, on behalf of the Prosecutor's Office. This item is for the Microsoft EA agreement to where the Prosecutor's Office would benefit from various licenses for servers and personal computers, which will include Office 365 and some other licenses that they need in order to operate for the 3-year term. This is a state term contract with the request to have it be awarded to Dell Marketing, which is one of 2 vendors that were approved by the state, the other being SHI. for this particular contract.
Any questions or comments about this item? What is the date of the contract? Is it 1/22
As of today, yes, the date of the meeting,
through 2021?
yes.
Well, I thought it was a 3-year contract. Isn't that what you said before?
Yeah, it is a 3-year contract. So it's for all of 19, all of 20, and then 21. So that should be corrected to 22.
Does anybody have any reservations about changing that date?
No,
Mr. Meckler?
Does the 450,000 stay the same? That's the total over 3 years, or is that?
yes,
per year?
so it works out to be about $150,000 a year. However, if they have any, if they would have to room for true up or true down, depending on the license uses and the license need by that area.
So I guess my question would be, is the backup contain the
Well, the
correct
backup,
dates in there?
the backup has the dates. It is $150,000 per year
Okay,
per the quote from Dell.
so I guess I would
It just essentially a typo.
make a motion to change the date of contract termination to 1/21/2022. Is that correct? Do I need to do that in a motion? And
Yeah, I'll second.
all right, I'll move to change that date. Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of having the record reflect the correct date, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the date is changed to 1/21/2022. Any other questions about the item?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if Lenore or Andre would know this. Does the backup reflect 2022? I just want to make sure that.
That's what
Contract, I'm sorry if, I don't know if you would have that, but in the contract, it's actually on the third page, first column, which states terms, it says 36 months. From execution.
Is the state contract covered for all 3 years? I mean, sometimes there's expiration dates on those state
I
contracts?
believe the state contract is up June 30th of 2019, but this would lock in the prices that we have until the end of the contract term.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. This board is the actual contracting authority, so whatever is approved today, we will make sure all supporting documentation is consistent with that.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
The next item, BC 2019-61, has been held at the request of the County Council. Next item.
Mr. Chair, can I just say
Yes.
something about that? We did ask a bunch of questions in advance from the 3 members at the Board of Control. We're waiting on getting some answers, but there is some hesitation around the particular suggested vendor for such a long period of time as well, considering some things that are going on around the vendor.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. We did submit the answers back. I don't know if you got them all this morning.
Janelle, we did, it looked like some of them weren't answered. We did get a lot of them answered, but it appears that some of them weren't addressed.
Is there something that's specific for our department to answer or some other department may need to answer?
I think I would support Mr. McAleer's contention that we should hold the item. to the
Okay,
next
I'm not disputing that. I just wanted to make sure that they have the answers. We were providing the answers as needed.
I think there are a couple answers that could be followed up with IT and a couple answers that might have to be followed up from other departments.
Okay, thank you.
Next item, item BC 2019-62, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with Unitronics Data Systems, Inc. for license, support, and maintenance on the Unitronics Abacus application, and it's for the period April 1st, 2015 through March 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to March 31st, 2021, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $11,947,063.
Good morning, Board. Dennis Salvo at Department of IT. This amendment is for software maintenance for a 2-year period with Abacus, with the application through Unitronics. This is used by HHS for fraud detection. It's used primarily by CFS, Children and Family Services, for their Medicaid, cash assistance, food stamps, and TANF, temporary assistant needed families applications. This award originally was based on sole source. This application software is sole source. And it's the exact same services going forward for the amendment that the original award was made for.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on this item?
Yes.
Councilwoman Miller?
Is there, in the original contract, was there a limit on how many times it could be amended, and where are we within that?
I would answer, I don't know the definitive answer, Dale, but I would say no. I don't think I've ever seen a contract or an amendment state a cap on the number of amendments. So my guess is no, but I don't know that for a fact.
Could you find out and get back to me? I've seen a lot of contracts that are for 1 year with a possible 2 1-year extensions, you know, so they have a 3-year limit. There's actually been a lot of those. I don't know if in IT, but particularly a lot of the HHS contracts have that kind of feature.
I agree with you. I have seen that. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I thought you meant just in general language term. No, yes, I do agree. There's renewal options that are stated out in language.
So, my question is what the renewal options are on this contract.
If there was any, I will.
Okay.
Either way, I'll get back to you.
And I don't need an answer prior to voting on it.
Any other questions? And just so I get this right, so we're paying about $6,000 a year roughly in maintenance? 2 years?
Yeah.
And I'm not expecting to know the answer off the top of your head, but what's the value of the system? I mean, what did the system cost? Do you know?
You know, I was trying to remember, Dennis. I think I presented on their behalf an amendment, could have been upwards of 2 years ago. And I believe we got a report from HHS, maybe I should ask for it if they got it again. But at that point, the fraud detection and what was recouped by the county was substantial compared to this cost.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, what, say, for example, what the capitalized cost is. Is it $200,000? Is it $1 million for the system? What are we investing in for the $6,000 a year? What is that? You know, you get a maintenance contract on a car,
right?
But what's the value of the car,
right,
that we're protecting with the maintenance? That's all. If you could let me know, or
I can ask them. Yeah, in regards to, I'm sure as with any other software maintenance, it gives them all the updates and everything else, keeps them current. In that regard, the value is always up to date. But as far as you're looking for their overall expenditure,
what was the original value of the software or the equipment that went with it that we're protecting?
That should be in the history. I don't know if you have the history in front of you. Would have the history of the original and all the amendments?
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. I just have the original amount for this contract, not the purchase amount for the software.
Okay. All right, if you
I can get that, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item's approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-63, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, recommending an award on Requisition 43314 to Aurora Tactical Group, LLC, in the amount of $39,900 for the purchase of 20 night vision monoculars and accessories for the Lake County Regional SWAT Team.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn from Public Safety, and this is making an award on in a regional state Homeland Security grant. We received 4 bids, and we're making a recommendation to the lowest bidder.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Councilwoman Baker?
I was curious on the backup detail, because these are for 20 units for tactical operations, but it says, are these purchases compatible to ERP? Is it ERP approved? Are the services covered by the original ERP budget? Why is that? Why are those questions answered as yes for something that seems unrelated?
It is unrelated, and that would have been a mistake by the staff member.
So those questions should have been no.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about this item? Seeing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-64, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, submitting an amendment to an agreement with Cuyahoga County Planning Commission for planning and mapping services for the Cuyahoga County Geographical Information System, and is for the period August 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2018, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $5,000.
As the motion read, the Planning Commission helps the Emergency Management Agency with planning and GIS mapping. They help us prepare maps for incidents and any special events. They also help us migrate and merge data from the federal-based incident resource inventory system into our knowledge center, and this is the mechanism by which we pay them.
Thank you. Any questions about this item? Hearing none, I will make a motion for approval. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
The next item is a 2-part item, item BC 2019-65, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Reentry. A, submitting an RP exemption on Requisition 42932, which will result in an award recommendation to Design Impact, Inc., in the amount not to exceed $24,000 for management workflow, design, and facilitation of creative sessions in connection with the development of a comprehensive operational plan and a community-wide strategy around reentry. And it's for the period January 15th, 2019 through December 31st, 2019. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Fred Bolliton with the Office of Reentry. This is the second part of our efforts to transform the focus of the Office of Reentry from primarily a funding of services to becoming a real backbone agency in support of all things reentry. The end of last year, you approved our project for asset mapping, which will allow us to identify what exists out there with regard to reentry and gaps that exist. With that information, we want to do 2 things with this contract, which is to have someone to help facilitate and the creation of 2 plans. One is a community-wide plan, which incorporates the stakeholders dealing with reentry issues and reentry services to create the vision for reentry county-wide. It's a community-wide vision of what we want to see happen and shared outcomes. The second part is an internal part and creation of an operational plan for the Office of Reentry in helping to ensure that this community-wide plan is put into practice. The procurement process was through an informal RFP, given the amount of the contract and our inability to, in conversation locally, find people who were interested and capable of such a project, because it is really creation of 2 plans for a very small amount of money. There were no other bidders, even though it was put through for bidding that way. It's funded through the HHS levy and is already included in our budget, so we're not requesting any additional funds at this time.
Thank you.
In addition, the funds used for this will be able to be used as part of our in-kind match for the Federal Second Chance Act grant. In lieu of a cash match, we were able to use in-kind services, and this would be able to be applied towards that.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Councilman Miller?
Do you expect these plans to be completed around 12/31/2019, or is there an earlier date when you're expecting completion?
That is our expectation. It will have to hurry. We intended to start this last year, but difficulties in coming up with a contractual arrangement with the vendor because of the small amount of money on cutting back on certain things and getting certain concessions from them. We still expect that it will be completed this year. Obviously, there can be no guarantees, but they're going to be working to at least get the community-wide plan and hopefully get everything completed by the end of the year.
Councilwoman Baker?
So is this a new program?
I say it's not a program, it's the design of those plans to help us.
But it's a
move
new
in the future.
operational plan.
Mhm.
And do you have something in place that will give you some results? Do you have some type of, after the plan is put in place, the results of it? What is?
The part of the plan is to guide the Office of Reentry in connecting the community vision with the county strategic plan. And again, part of this is that we have primarily, since our inception, been a funder of programmatic services, but it's become clear that while we have had pilot programs, there's not room in the budget to bring them up to scale, and we feel that the best effort would be to focus on being a convener, coordinator, collaborator, to oversee all things reentry and make sure that county-wide public and private funds are being used most efficiently to help the reentry population.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I had one quick question. The vendors in Cincinnati, does any of this contract include travel expenses?
They will, whatever travel they will need, and they will be here about 4 or 5 times, they are providing in kind. So they will, much of their work can be done outside, but in terms of meetings with the stakeholders and stuff, they will be here. They have $10,000 budgeted for transportation, and that's in kind.
You mean $10,000 over and above the $24,000?
Right. That is not funding that we are giving them. That is what they are providing in addition.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure somebody checks that contract to make sure that that's the case, please. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is approved.
Next item, BC 2019-66, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Early Childhood, recommending to accept a donation in the amount of $250,000 from Huntington National Bank for the support of the Universal Pre-Kindergarten 2.0 program, and it's for the period September 1st, 2018 through August 31st, 2019.
Good morning, Marcos Cortez with the Office of Early Childhood, Invest in Children. Again, this is accepting a donation from Huntington National Bank in the amount of $250,000. This is Huntington's commitment to the expansion of our UPK and high-quality preschool program in Cuyahoga County. Normally, the funds go to the Cleveland Foundation, but the bank elected to have it come to Invest in Children directly. These funds specifically support the sites at the CEOGC.
Thank you. Any questions about this item? Councilman Miller?
Just a question as to, since the starting date was 9/1/2018, why is it just coming now?
So in the past, we have just had to send a letter to the bank to request the funds. I don't know if this was a new process for these funds or a new process for the bank, but we had to submit an application online, and there were some glitches with the submission. It didn't get submitted until September 28th when it finally went through. We didn't get notification that they were giving us the funding again until sometime in December, and once we got that, we submitted it through OnBase.
Well, regardless of that, we're happy for anybody who wants to donate us money for universal PK. It's much appreciated.
Agreed. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll move to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-67, Agency of the Inspector General, recommending an award on Requisition 43943 and enter into a sole source contract with West Publishing Corporation, doing business as West, a Thomson Reuters business, in the amount not to exceed $9,475.92 for clear government fraud database services, and it's for the period January 28, 2019 through January 27, 2020.
Good morning. My name is Valisa Turner Howard. I'm the First Assistant Deputy Inspector General. First, I'd just like to say it's a 2-year contract. It should end 1/27/2021. And that's actually in the contract, so this just may be wrong on the document up there. So we are requesting the funds for this clear contract. It's a sole source contract. We were using Lexis, which is what most of the county uses. There's a group contract. However, we found there were some gaps in doing background checks for our vendors, and we needed a more in-depth service. And we'd used Clear before and had great success with that. And so we would like to get Clear back again for a 2-year contract.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Mr. McAleer?
Does the amount stay the same for 6,500, or I'm sorry, 9,500 for the 2 years, or is that per year?
That is for 2 years together, so it's like 45-ish each year.
Any other questions, comments? So I would move to approve the item with the condition that end date is changed to 1/27/2021. Is that
correct?
All right. So I'll move to approve that. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of approval with the change, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to exemptions, item BC 2019-68, Sheriff's Department, recommending an alternative procurement process on Requisition 44354 to specify a brand name, which will result in an award recommendation in the amount not to exceed $100,000 for the purchase of Safariland Armor Body Armor Ballistic Level 2 bulletproof vest for deputies.
Laura Sims, Sheriff's Department, we're requesting the alternative procurement to specify a brand when we put this out for bid. We will, use the lowest price when it comes in. However, the reason that we want to use a specific brand is the deputies have done research on it and field testing and found that this particular brand has the best safety rating for the most economical price.
Thank you. Any questions? So we're basically looking for bids from resellers of a particular brand.
Correct. Yeah, instead of putting out, normally when we put it out for bid, we just put the specs and get whatever, but because this body armor brand is head and shoulders above the rest, when we put it out for bid, we want to specify the specific brand.
If there's no more questions on this item, I'll move for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All those in favor of approval of the exemption indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The exemption's approved. Thank you. Now we move on to the consent agenda. So that is items 2019-69 through 73. Is that correct, Andrea?
Yes, it is.
So if everybody can take a moment. Are there any questions on any of the items contained on the consent agenda? I have one about the innovation contract, Catherine. I just want to make sure I'm not reading this incorrectly. It says, to date, the Metro Lab network has been free to join. However, I hate those words, however. I mean, does this mean we're going to get charged for something this year?
Hi, Catherine Tkachuk, Office of Innovation and Performance. No, this will be paid by the universities. To date, nobody's had to pay a membership fee, but this one will be paid by Cleveland State. We specifically took out any language that could allow us to be charged for it. If in the future that would change, we would obviously bring that forward back to Board of Control for approval if we chose to go forward with the network at that time. So Cleveland State will now be charged as part of the network, but we will not.
You happen to know what that fee is?
It is, I believe it is $9,975, but I'm not positive, but I think that's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Catherine, just on that, is that a monthly, or I'm sorry, an annual fee or a one-time fee if we were to have to pay it?
I believe that is an annual fee.
It's an annual fee, and you are correct with the dollar amount.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions about any of the items on the consent agenda?
What is that for?
Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as detailed on items 69 through 73. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Delayed second by Mr. Meckler. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The items are approved. So any other business today?
No other business at this time,
Is there any additional public comment?
and no public comment.
So I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All those in favor of adjournment, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.